He wasn't supposed to be there. I didn't even want him at the dinner, not really. But Charles asked, "Bring your husband," he said with that smooth, charming grin that always made me feel seen, maybe too seen. I told him he was busy, but Charles just shrugged and said, "Bring him anyway." So I did, maybe out of guilt, maybe curiosity. We were at the bar after the awards. Charles had been drinking bourbon, neat. I was sipping champagne. My husband, quiet, always a little too formal in crowds, stood on my left, eyes scanning the room like he was somewhere else entirely. Then Charles leaned in and said it right there, loud enough to hear, calm as can be. "Dinner tomorrow?" he asked. "Just us." And he looked directly at my husband when he said it, not me. Him. I laughed, reflex, not joy. "Sure," I said before I could stop myself. That's when my husband set down his glass, didn't say a word, not even a blink, just walked away. Hey, if you've made it this far, take a second to like the video and subscribe. 97% of listeners never do, but it means the world to our team and helps keep these stories alive. I watched him go, confusion rising like heat in my chest. I turned to Charles, who raised an eyebrow. "Was that too much?" he asked, still smiling. I didn't answer. My phone buzzed a moment later. Some meaningless notification. I checked it anyway. Anything to look away. We finished the evening like nothing had happened. Smiles, toasts, a final photo in front of the company banner. I stayed longer than I meant to, maybe because I didn't want to walk into an empty house. But when I finally did, around midnight, the first thing I noticed was the silence. No shoes by the door, no jacket slung over the banister, just a single white envelope on the kitchen table, my name written in a steady hand. Inside, the garage remote, the house key, no note. I stood there for almost a full minute before I even moved. My chest felt hollow, like I'd swallowed a question too big to ever answer. I ran upstairs. His closet was half empty. The drawer where he kept his watches? Gone. And then I saw the spot on the nightstand. He'd taken the photo of us at the lake. Left everything else, just not that. My phone vibrated. A message from him, timestamped 3:11 a.m., 4 words long. "You'll need the car." That's when I knew it wasn't anger. It wasn't jealousy. It was intention, cold, surgical, unmistakable. And I hadn't just said yes to dinner. I'd said no to everything else. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every creak in the house echoed like a final warning. His side of the bed was empty. Clean, untouched, his scent already fading. I kept expecting to hear the front door, to hear him pacing in the hallway like he sometimes did when he couldn't shut his brain off. But there was nothing. Just the hum of the fridge and the soft tick of the clock we bought in Charleston. By morning, I found the key. It was sitting on my dashboard, neatly placed like everything he did. I touched it like it might explain something, why it was there, why he wasn't. The seat was still warm. He hadn't been gone long. My stomach dropped. I called, straight to voicemail. I texted, "Where are you?" No reply. I should have seen it sooner. The little signs, the way he'd asked about the quitclaim last year like it was no big deal, just to simplify things, he'd said, the way he insisted on having a separate business attorney from the one we used for joint matters. I called it overkill. He'd just smiled and nodded. I opened my laptop, tried to log into our shared cloud folder, access denied, tried the joint checking, zeroed out. My name was still there, technically, but the money wasn't. I rushed upstairs, opened the file cabinet. Our documents were still there. Neat rows of labeled folders, tax returns, deeds, prenup. But then I noticed a gap, one slot left empty. Estate planning. I went to my email, searched his name, keywords, everything recent was gone, auto-archived or scrubbed. Then I searched Samuel Brandt, our estate attorney, one result from 6 months ago, all documents finalized and signed. Finalize, signed, past tense. My phone buzzed again. Not him, just a calendar reminder, dinner with Charles. I canceled it, then I sat down and tried to understand what was happening. Not emotionally, logistically, because this wasn't a tantrum or lover's spat. This was a departure, clean, legal, coordinated, and I had no map to follow. I stared out the window as the sun edged higher. A neighbor jogged past. A bird landed on the mailbox. The world spun like nothing had changed, while I sat in a house that no longer felt like mine, full of things we picked out together, suddenly stripped of the one thing I never thought he'd take. Himself. I didn't cry, not then, not because it didn't hurt, but because I could feel the shape of something deeper forming behind the pain. He hadn't left in anger. He'd left in silence. And he was already 10 steps ahead. The first few days, I thought I could manage the damage, control the narrative, smooth the edges like I always did. He overreacted, I told Karen from sales when she looked at me sideways at the Monday check-in. It was just Charles being Charles. You know how he is. I gave a little laugh. Practiced, light. My husband's always been private, stoic. He just needs space. Karen nodded too quickly, but she didn't look me in the eye after that. I tried the same line with Andrea from HR during lunch. Honestly, it was awkward, but not serious. Just an unfortunate joke. I even shrugged, as if I didn't care. But Andrea wasn't buying it. Delia, she said carefully, setting down her fork. I was 10 feet away. When Charles said it, he looked right at your husband. It didn't feel like a joke. And just like that, I felt it, the first small tear in the curtain. Later that day, someone from tech support stopped me in the hallway. Hey, weird question. You still married to that guy from the dinner? I blinked, caught off guard. Yes, why? He scratched his head. Thought so. Someone posted a clip of that moment. It's on TikTok. You can't see your faces, but yeah, it's obvious. That night I searched for it, found it. The video was grainy, shaky, shot from someone's phone at the bar, just far enough to miss details but close enough to catch the moment. Charles's voice was crystal clear. Dinner tomorrow. Just us. The camera panned slightly, catching my profile as I smiled and said yes. And then my husband. Turning. Walking away. The caption read, "When you watch a man let go in real time." It had over 80,000 likes. I sat on the floor of our bedroom, my bedroom now, and stared at the screen. I tried reporting it, but that didn't stop the comments. I stopped reading after the 10th one that called me a traitor in heels. The next day, I tried to email him, just to explain, just to say it wasn't what it looked like, but my message bounced, undeliverable. I tried again from another account, same result. Then I checked our shared cloud. Gone. I reached for my phone. His contact was still there. I texted, "Can we please talk?" Delivered, no reply. 2 hours later, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered too fast. It wasn't him, it was his assistant, Madeline, polite, controlled. "Delia," she said, "just wanted to confirm that he's taken indefinite leave, effective immediately." I swallowed. "Where is he?" "I'm not authorized to say." There was a pause. I waited for something more, but she ended with only 4 clipped words. "Please respect his decision." The call ended, and so did the version of the story I thought I could tell, because it was no longer mine, it was his. And he had already begun erasing the pieces I used to own. His office was stripped bare, not a note, not a trace, just a faint outline where his diplomas had once hung, and a light scuff on the floor where his chair must have scraped. The front desk receptionist gave me a careful smile when I asked for him. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Caldwell," she said. "He's no longer here." No longer here. The words looped in my head as I left the building and stood on the curb, staring at my reflection in the glass like it might offer something more honest. I drove to his parents' house next. They knew me, loved me, I thought. His mother answered the door. She didn't invite me in. "Delia," she said softly, "I just want to know if he's okay." She didn't blink. "You should go." I opened my mouth, then closed it. She shut the door. I stood there for a long time. That night, I sat on the edge of the bathtub and called someone I swore I never would. A private investigator named Lang. A friend of a friend, cash only. Discreet. He took the job. Within 2 days, he had footage from the garage. My husband exiting alone at 3:06 a.m. A small duffel in hand. Calm, methodical. The toll camera caught him heading west 3 hours later. That was the last confirmed sighting. No flights, Lang told me. No trains. No rental cars in his name. No credit activity since the day after. Burner phone, I asked. Possibly. But even then, nothing's pinged. No facial recognition hits. No flagged IDs. I thought about the man I married. His quiet precision. The way he read every contract 3 times. How he once built a backup server for our vacation photos just in case. This wasn't an escape. It was a disappearance. And it was working. At the office, things shifted fast. Charles was suddenly stepping back from his role. Officially, reassigned to a different division. Unofficially, Everyone knew. The clip, the whispers, the cold way HR avoided my eyes. And then it happened to me. My projects were redistributed. Clients I'd cultivated that were now reassigned. I was told it was temporary, a strategic realignment of assets. My badge still worked, but I could feel it, the quiet exhale of a company washing its hands. I reached out to Liz, a mutual friend. We'd all had dinner together once years ago. She was neutral ground. Have you heard from him? I asked. 3 dots, then 1 line. He's gone, D, like really gone. I typed back. Has he really vanished? She never replied. I stared at the blinking cursor for 10 minutes. Then I closed the app and walked outside. The streetlight buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across the empty pavement. I was chasing something I couldn't name anymore. Maybe not even a person, just an outline, a ghost. And with every step, I felt the truth settle. He hadn't vanished. He'd just made sure I couldn't follow. Lang called me with a tight voice I hadn't heard before. I've hit a wall, he said. Not a delay. A wall. I sat on the floor of the guest room, his old office, once full of documents, tech, ideas I barely understood. Now it was just a room with a desk that didn't belong to anyone anymore. What kind of wall? I asked. None of your emails to him return metadata, no headers, no server stamps, nothing. Like the inbox doesn't exist, like it never did. I closed my eyes. He's a systems architect, right? Lang continued. I think he built something you're not going to be able to chase through. I opened the filing cabinet again, looked at our mortgage agreement, the binder we kept updated once a year. Something was missing. The page with our joint signatures, my name on the house, was gone. I flipped through the pages again, faster now, and finally found it, a scanned copy of a quitclaim deed, my signature, neat and trusting, dated 11 months ago, labeled Tax Simplification Transfer. I remembered that day. He'd made tea, said the lawyer suggested it would simplify deductions. I signed without reading it. I pulled up the county records next. He was listed as the sole owner. The house wasn't ours. It was his. I called the accountant, asked about our investment portfolio. She hesitated. Actually, I haven't been in contact with him since the trust was established. What trust? I asked. She cleared her throat. It was filed under Morton Holdings. I assumed he discussed it with you. I ended the call. Morton. His middle name. His mother's maiden. I looked through my saved documents, then tried our old investment dashboard. Access denied. I called Lang again. I checked asset registrations, he said. Everything's been moved to shell entities. LLCs tied to blind trusts. Some international filings. You won't reach them. Not directly. What about his company shares? Locked. Tied to the trust. He revoked your proxy months ago. Not illegal, just clean. I paced the hallway. My mind raced to find something, anything that would tether him to me. I opened my employee file at work, scrolled to the emergency contact section. His name used to be there. For years. Now it read N.A. No forwarding address, no alternate number, no digital trail. I sat down on the floor and stared at nothing, because that's what I was chasing. Not a man, not even a marriage, but echoes. He hadn't just left. He'd erased the entire infrastructure of our life. No explanation, no confrontation, just a series of signed documents, quietly prepared, each one tightening the noose around the version of us I thought would last. I scrolled back through old texts, birthdays, dinner photos, lazy weekend plans. Then I reached the last one he ever sent. You'll need the car. That wasn't a goodbye. It was a message. I've taken what's mine. The rest was never yours to begin with. It was a slow Thursday. I'd taken my lunch break late, wandered into the Barnes & Noble near the office just to kill time and quiet the static in my head. My new job was fine. Title was smaller, team was cold, but it was work. Enough to pay for a 1-bedroom walk-up and a car that rattled when it idled. I told myself I was rebuilding, that everyone had a chapter like this. I was flipping through a lifestyle magazine when I saw it. On the business rack, 3rd shelf down, the title in gold foil, Finance Forward Quarterly, subheadline, Silent Founders, the men behind the shells. And there he was, Trey Morton, hair shorter, a bit more gray at the temples, stronger jawline. He'd lost weight, gained something else, gravity maybe, but it was him. I felt the blood drain from my arms. I picked it up, hands trembling before I could stop them. The photo was from a recent investor summit. He wore a navy suit, no tie, smile just barely visible. The caption listed 5 names. One was his, Trey, his middle name, Morton, his mother's. He had rewritten himself, fully. I sat down in the corner chair beside the cafe and flipped to the feature. There he was, again. Page 12. Larger spread, interview snippets, and that calm, clipped tone he used when discussing things that mattered more than people realized. He spoke about discretion, strategy, clean governance, and then a name appeared. I blinked hard. Veriton Holdings, the firm that had quietly absorbed one of Charles's companies in a silent buyout last year. The same firm I had pitched to desperately 6 months earlier. My proposal rejected within 48 hours. No feedback, no contact, just a bland form letter that said, "We've decided to pursue a different direction." My fingers pressed the page. I remembered that pitch. I'd stayed up for 2 nights, built it with everything I had left. Charles had collapsed after the scandal. His firm-bled talent begged for relevance. I thought I could save a sliver of it. I thought I could carve out something new. But the firm I pitched to, he owned it. I'd stood in front of a name that wasn't his name, made a case for a product he probably knew inside and out. And he'd turned me down without even a courtesy call. I'd walked past him, not once, at least twice. There had been a man at the summit I attended last year. Tall, serious. I remember thinking he looked familiar, but I couldn't place it. Now I knew why. I hadn't failed to find him. I just failed to see what he'd become. Trey Morton. Of course he would use something clean, something untraceable unless you knew the pattern. I sat there in that bookstore for an hour, holding a magazine that might as well have been a mirror, and for the first time in 3 years, I realized he never disappeared. He just built a life too far ahead for me to follow. The badge said guest, but everyone else's said founder, investor, moderator. Mine might as well have said outsider. I wasn't even on the guest list. The forum was held at a luxury conference center downtown, the kind of place with glass elevators and lobbies that smell like success. I'd found the listing in the back of the finance magazine, Trey Morton, to keynote the Future Through Structure session. The name burned into me. I had to see him, not to beg, not to argue, just to know he was real. Security was polite but firm. "I'm sorry, miss, this event is restricted to registered guests." "I know one of the speakers," I said. They exchanged a glance. One of them reached for his earpiece. I stood there, heart thudding. Then, just as I turned to leave, he appeared, just past the curtain. Calm, clean lines, charcoal suit, no emotion in his face. He locked eyes with me just once and nodded. The guard stepped aside. He didn't greet me, didn't smile, just motioned for me to follow. We walked in silence down a back hallway, past panels of glass etched with company names I didn't recognize, but now wondered if he owned half of them. He led me to a narrow corridor behind the stage. I stood against the wall while an event assistant passed him a water bottle, adjusted his mic, asked if he needed anything. He said no, then turned to me. I hadn't prepared what to say. How could I? So I said the only word that came. "Why?" His eyes didn't soften. They didn't harden either. They simply stayed still. "Because when someone publicly treats you like you're invisible," he said, voice even, "it's freeing." I held my breath. He continued, "You stop explaining. You stop holding space for people who subtract from your life while calling it love." I opened my mouth, closed it. The silence hung thick between us. He looked down the hallway, toward the stage. The announcer's voice echoed from the other side of the curtain, warming up the crowd. "I didn't think it mattered," I said, barely a whisper. "That night, I didn't think you'd actually—" "I know," he said quietly. "You didn't think I'd leave." He turned to go. My hand twitched. I wanted to say something that would make it all less final, but nothing did, because I didn't just lose him that night. I made myself small in front of the one person who had never once asked me to, and now I stood in a hallway, uninvited, watching a man who'd rebuilt himself entirely without me. No anger, no apology, just distance, and a life I could no longer touch. I asked for 1 hour. He agreed, not warmly, not with hope, just agreed. The meeting was set in a private office above the law firm he now used. Not the one we used to share. This one had darker furniture, soundproof doors, glass that showed nothing from the outside. I arrived early. Samuel Brandt was already there, seated, still calm, still unreadable. He gave me a small nod. Sat across from him. The chair was firmer than it looked. I waited for my husband to enter. He did, 10 minutes later. Alone. No tie, no emotion. Just that same precise stillness I used to call discipline before I learned what it looked like when it turned away from you for good. I'm not here to fight, I said. He didn't respond. I just want to understand. What's left? Samuel cleared his throat, reached into a leather folder, placed 3 documents on the table, each in a protective sleeve. No rustling, no drama, just facts. These are the finalized releases, he said, dated approximately 6 months prior to the company dinner in question. I leaned forward. First, revocation of spousal access rights, my signature already there, dated, witnessed. I remembered it now, one of those nights when he'd said it was part of our estate simplification. I hadn't read it. I trusted him. Second, asset allocation memo, reallocating primary and secondary holdings to a blind trust, individually controlled, no mention of joint designation, all properly notarized. Third, liability and privacy waiver. I'd signed that too. Something he'd labeled a renewal when we updated our living will. Every line was tight, legal, final. This is all enforceable? I asked, my voice too small. Samuel folded his hands. Yes, fully. There's no legal basis for challenge. I stared at him, then at my husband. You planned this? He didn't blink, didn't nod, didn't say a word. I looked back at the documents. My own handwriting stared up at me. So neat, so quick. I'd signed them the way people sign birthday cards or parking slips, and in doing so, I'd given him the entire exit ramp. The tears didn't come. Not then. What came was something worse, the weight of stillness, the realization that every back door he walked through, I had unlocked. He stood to leave. I opened my mouth, desperate for something. Was there ever a moment you were going to stop? I asked. He paused at the door. There was, he said, voice barely above breath, but it passed the moment you laughed. Then he left. Samuel collected the papers and offered me a tissue I didn't take. 'Cause the room didn't need tears, it needed signatures, and they were already there. Every single one mine. It started with a ping, then another. By the third one, I stopped pretending I wasn't curious. I unlocked my phone expecting a reminder or spam, maybe a calendar alert from the office. Instead, it was a link from Claire. You seeing this? I tapped it, a YouTube video, channel I'd never heard of. Thumbnail, a black and white still of a man walking away from a woman mid-conversation. Title in bright red, The Executive Ghosting You'll Never See Coming. It already had 1.2 million views. I froze. Before I could hit play, the comments hit me first. Dozens, hundreds, thousands. She really said yes while he was standing there? Stone cold. Silence was his power move. I hit play. The video was cut together with drama, music swelling under every slow motion pause. The voiceover was casual, almost amused. A man narrating the moment like it was a case study. This footage came from a corporate gala in Chicago 3 years ago. The woman, Delia Caldwell. Her husband, name redacted. The man beside her, her boss. And there it was again, that damn clip. Charles asking, voice syrupy smooth, dinner tomorrow? Just us. My laugh, my smile, the nod. And my husband, setting down his glass, turning and walking away without a single word. The camera lingered on his back. The narrator let the silence sit. He never raised his voice, never wrote a public statement. He didn't argue, he didn't plead, he just vanished, while restructuring his entire life beneath her feet. Clips followed, snippets from articles, the Finance Forward magazine cover, records of acquisitions by Morton Holdings, even a side-by-side frame, my pitch deck time-stamped a year later, and the LLC that turned it down. The voice returned. She pitched to the shell company he built, got rejected, didn't even recognize the man behind it, and then the final line, if he didn't argue, he didn't lose. Fade to black. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until my chest started to ache. The comment section had turned radioactive. She built the fire and stood in it. Never forget, he left with dignity. She stayed with headlines. My ex needs to see this. Then came the hashtags, ghost exit, now or dinner moment. He didn't argue, and finally, my name. Trending, not with sympathy, not with nuance, just judgment, just the internet doing what it does best, boiling a life into a moment, 1,000 strangers assigning weight to my worst second. They didn't know me, but they didn't need to, because the story was already written. And this time, I couldn't say it was taken out of context, couldn't say it was a misunderstanding, because context was the problem. And the whole world had just watched mine collapse in perfect resolution. The bench was old, worn smooth by time and strangers. It sat at the curve of the memorial trail, overlooking the river where early autumn leaves floated in lazy circles. I came there most mornings now, coffee in hand, hat low, just watching. That day, the volunteers were finishing the last stretch, planting a plaque, laying mulch. The air smelled of damp wood and clean earth. I didn't expect anyone to find me, not here, not anymore. But I felt her before I saw her. Soft footsteps on gravel, a shape in my periphery. I didn't turn. She sat down beside me, not too close, not like before. I lost everything, she said quietly. I let the words settle. No, I replied, eyes still on the river. You just saw what I kept from you. She didn't argue, didn't defend. She just sat, hands folded in her lap, staring at the same quiet horizon I was. I glanced at her once. The woman who used to be my future. Same eyes, but something hollow behind them now. Not anger, not grief, just absence. I stood slowly. My knees ached more than they used to. The wind picked up, tugging at the corners of my coat. She didn't reach for me, didn't call out. Her eyes followed me as I stepped off the path, boots crunching over loose stone. But her voice stayed where it was, and that, more than anything, told me it was over. Not with rage, not with fire, just the kind of silence that doesn't ask for answers anymore. Behind me, the trail kept going, forward always. I didn't look back. She was living in the echo of a decision, and I was finally walking free of it,